Good morning, welcome back to the channel and another day in the shop. I did a little bit of cleanup. So I took the engine bar tube out, cleaned it all up, cleaned up the A-pillar, windshield bar, and B-pillar, and then retacked it all together. Pretty happy with how that's turning out. So now it's on to all the supporting tubes. So I think what I'll start with first is the roof tubes, and then go from there. So once I get the roof tubes done, then I'll, keep on going with the back and the intrusion bars and support and everything. All right, so for the top, we're deleting the third brake light just to make it, it sticks up super high. So just make everything nice and tight. So we're gonna do a tube in the center and then support corner from there. And that way there'll be a big X on the roof, and then center, which will travel into the intrusion bars as well as the rear support bars. Going to start with rolling of the tube. We need about 142 inches. The roof bars all has a slight roll no matter which direction you go. So we got much tube here, and we're going to roll the whole thing just slightly and then start notching them out for the roof. So after the rolling, I'm adding a little bends at the ends. The reason for that is when I go to notching to that corner is already bent. So it will kind of match, plus it keeps it off the cab at the knot point. For all these notches, the easiest way is to do one side and then mark out the other. So doing these last couple notches are the hardest ones just because you have to fit them nice and tight in there on both sides. So coming together, roof's almost complete. Definitely got my use out of that one. Still working too. Got the roof tubes all in. I'll have to pull it apart to clean up the tube here and the front, but that's okay because I will pull these tubes to weld these main tubes underneath first. Before I weld these ones in, so it'll have to get stripped down anyways. So let's work on the rear. All right, so for the rear, we are going to start with the harness bar. We're gonna do as high as possible. We're not gonna be drilling holes in the cab. What we're gonna do is we're gonna build a harness bar across, and then we're gonna do a plate that bolts in inside and outside of the cab, and then weld another piece to that to support it with the actual roll cage. That way it's not just on sheet metal. So that way we can have a nice strong harness bar, and then on the inside of the cab we can build another bar to actually hook the seat belts to. Alright, we got all the B-pillar done. Now let's get the harness tie-ins, harness bar tie-ins cut out, and then we can mount them to the back of the cab and make the harness bar. Got the harness bar tie-ins tacked up. So that will allow us to run another plate on the inside and then run a tube across for both seat harnesses and tie it into the cage. Make it nice and strong. Working on this corner gusset here to support the cowl bar. Going to notch it into here a little bit and then put a bend in it to keep it nice and tight. All right, so the last two for the main cage is the intrusion bars. The intrusion bars help spread the load if you're taking impact on the top, but also keep stuff from coming in the windshield. Looks like we're gonna have to do a tiny bit of bend on each end to clear the wipers. So we got the intrusion bars done, tacked in. So now everything for the main cage is complete. So the process that I do is I will pull all the bars that overlap. So like this tube overlaps this one. Well, I want to weld the underside here. So I'll pull this bar out, and I'll do that through the whole chassis or the whole cage. And then I will go through and I will weld all of the main structure, weld out the portions where they overlap, put them back in, and then weld it as much as possible on the truck with it tacked down. And what that will do is it'll help me minimize warping. And then I will pull the cage off, weld the underside, and before I weld the underside, I will make a jig that ties it all together to also minimize warping. So heat makes things warp, and the process I do works pretty good to keep it very, very minimal. So let's get to it. Hopefully by the end of the day, the cage is fully welded and painted and back on the truck. All right, got the cage pulled off, got it jigged up. What that does is allow me to weld it with minimizing warpage. So jigged up with a couple pieces of square tube, the cowl bar, as well as just another piece of 2-inch in the rear. Let's get to welding. The cage all finished up, welded out, painted, put back on. Windshield wipers clear, and the hood clears, opens all the way. Can't see nothing in there.